Hi friends, welcome to yet another episode of Surkhab Talks. Surkhab Talks is a platform which encourages people to talk out their concerns, to sort out their concerns. In this series, what we are doing is we are inviting subject experts to help us overcome our day-to-day challenges. And in this episode, we have invited Mr. Sanjay Bahadur, who has got more than 4 decades of corporate experience, is an alumni of SRCC and FMS, and we will understand from him the metaphysical reasons of the issues which we face in corporate life, and we will understand metaphysical reason also later on. Sir, thank you so much for
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bindu, for having me in here and for giving me the occasion to share some of my thoughts, my experiences about this topic. It's a very interesting topic, yes, that we picked up.
सर प्रोफेशनल लाइफ में ना हमें बड़े चैलेंजेस आते हैं तो टू ओवरकम दोस चैलेंजेस व्हाट वी डू वी नॉर्मली से चेंज डिपार्टमेंट और चेंज जॉब्स और quit for that matter. But then we see that the pattern gets repeated despite doing all this. You know, maybe the faces will change, the situation will change for a while, but then again you land into trouble. So what people normally say, हमारी तो किस्मत ही खराब है, and then they don't enjoy professional life at all. And it becomes more bad for them when they see their colleagues enjoying a decent good life. So again they start questioning themselves कि हमने क्या किया है जो यही सब चल रहा है. तो सर rational obvious तो we all keep trying. आप हमें metaphysical science से बताइए कि ऐसा क्यों हो सकता है.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, in fact, this is one of the fundamentals behind the metaphysics of it. So, what happens is that when we sort of experience such a situation and we are unable to extract ourselves out of it, as you said, job change कर लिया, department या function change कर लिया, industry change कर ली, भगवान ने चाहा तो boss भी कभी change हो गया, but then things don't change. So essentially it is time in such a case when we need to acknowledge that there is a pattern which we are unable to resolve, and therefore that needs addressing, because if change of physical situation in the physical reality could have changed the things, the person would have got out of it. But as you said, since he is unable to get out of it, so therefore it is important to recognize the pattern. Either there could be disturbing patterns,
Okay.
in which case we need to understand what is that pattern which I'm attracting again and again.
सर एक एग्जांपल दे दीजिए प्लीज.
So there is a need to I keep encountering troublesome bosses all the time.
Okay.
One of the cases which I had handled some years back, and it's a very common kind of scenario. मेरी किस्मत खराब है सर, मेरे तो बॉसेस ही हमेशा ऐसे मिलते रहते हैं मेरे को. So it is in such a case, what happened was the client, after the therapy sessions as they were undergoing, understood that it was not a problem with this boss or that boss or this industry. It was his coding, it was his childhood programming about authority figures in general.
Okay.
So he had a passive aggressive behavior against authority figures, bosses. And why that happened? Because his relationship with his father in his childhood, his relationship with his grandmother in his childhood, his relationship with some of his teachers in his childhood, and as the person grew up, his relationship with other authority figures which came in his universe were. So it was more of a question of authority figures, not necessarily. So when you heal that attitude, that program, which the belief systems which the person has got programmed with against authority figures, and is it possible to do that? Yes, of course. That's why deep therapies, when we say on the metaphysical plane, you exploring the subconscious mind when they happen. So it is possible to heal all of them. There's another case to answer the other part of your question about patterns. There can be emotional patterns such as anxiety. So therefore there was this client who kept experiencing anxiety all through his life, even when things were good and things were not good.
Okay.
So he could not attribute it कि जब मेरा पंगा होता है तभी problem होती है. This anxiety was coming back again and again and again. So when the therapy happened using the principles of metaphysics, it came about that when this child was in his womb, in his mother's womb, his grandfather had passed away, and the parents of that child, which was still in the womb, had caught that anxiety of having had a sudden loss of the father figure of the house. So there were money worries and so on and so forth. And the child in the womb caught that pattern of anxiety, and that pattern of anxiety kept coming back again and again and again in life.
Oh, that's very profound.
So the reasons, when we explore metaphysics, the reasons can be so multifarious. Then again, there are sometimes there are issues of skill sets. Sometimes, we just get driven by our programming from the family, from society. नहीं भाई engineer ही बनना है, नहीं doctor बनना है. So we get driven into a certain profession because from a rational level it makes a lot of sense in terms of money, the earning potential, or in any other way. So it can be, there can be so many reasons. But then when we realize that we were destined to handle a different kind of profession or follow a passion, so is it possible metaphysically to approach it? Yes, it is possible. And at times, in fact, there are times when you take the client back to some past life where the client has had the happiest life exploring a certain skill.
Okay.
So is it possible to revive such a skill in current life? Yes, it is possible to integrate that skill which the client's subconscious mind holds from a different life. And if that drives him to the purpose of his current life, it's possible to do that. So there can be, when we explore the metaphysics, there can be so many reasons that one can explore and get to. And it is so absolutely wonderful once the resolutions come, and it's good to see happy clients at the end of it.
Yes. And so for generally also maybe for at times we are able to handle these challenges in a normal way also, which 90% of the corporate people do. But then there are people who really suffer because of such a thing. So it's a very different aspect, and I'm sure for all the viewers also it's a very different perspective.
So like they say, as they say, pain is inevitable. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So you can undergo the pain because the pain will be there in some form or the other. Whether it's bodily pain, it is mental pain, it is emotional pain.
Correct.
But whether you choose to suffer through it or you choose to sail through it after picking up your learning, as you very rightly said, I think that's what determines the metaphysics from just suffering the physics of it.
So many of the people in corporate life face this challenge where it's not a healthy relationship with their bosses, and the bosses may also not have a very healthy relationship with subordinates. So on a normal level it is fine, but things get very ugly when bosses make their subordinates life very miserable, and there are many cases where the subordinates have made life of bosses very miserable. So please tell us the metaphysical angle as to why this scenario happens.
So it's a very interesting question that you've asked, and it's a very broad-based question, and there is no one finite or definitive answer. But if I were to look at from my own experience of cases handled, and the reasons could vary very widely. Let's look at it. Break this down into two parts. One is the part of from the standpoint of the employee. First of all, when it comes to metaphysics, you see the conditioning right from childhood of the employee varies and can determine very, very vastly how the employee or the subordinate starts looking at the boss or the authority figure. The entire attitude, is there a passive aggressive behavior that the employee has been used to since his or her childhood? Does the child, now the employee, refuse to accept control, or does he go ahead and ask, and he's okay with the control from the boss and taking the commands from the boss? Also, in terms of the child's or the employees, as we would say, beliefs about money, about working, about career, that has a big role to play on how the employee looks at the entire process of working for a boss and taking commands from the boss. Of course, there are also soul to soul contracts. Since we are talking about metaphysics, now the employee as a soul and the boss as a soul who have attracted each other, and I know this is a little different language than what we normally are used to in our day to day corporate life. Now they have attracted each other as the relationship of boss and employee. So sometimes there can be soul contact, and I have an actual case, where a boss came into this life of this employee twice round in the career of the employee. Twice round, both times the job was not intended. And the boss just landed and was planted there in the company at two different companies in the same employee's life at two different organizations. And as he later on found out when he came for therapy, it was discovered that there was a past life contract when this employee was a mantri in some king's cabinet in that life, and this boss of his was actually the senapati.
Okay.
And that time they had a lot of hate relationship, and from that life, and they had both of sorts sworn कि मैं तेरे को देख लूंगा. Now that became the karmic path for this current life, and lo and behold, that boss came suddenly, and once he tried to mess up with the career of this employee, things didn't quite work out, but it was a troublesome time for the employee. After another 3 or 4 years in a different organization, a different environment, the same boss yet again came up, pretty much similar environment, and this time he was successful in getting the employee to resign. So there can be so many reasons why, and when therapy, of course, happened, the employee who was a client went into his past life and discovered the reason that it was a past life soul contract. Of course, there are processes to deal with healing such a relationship, and as it happened, the employee had a very comfortable relationship with that person, not as a boss necessarily, but in future dealings, since they all belong to the same industry. So that can be another reason for this boss subordinate relationship. Then, of course, there are sometimes patterns that employees or any human being encounters. Now, those patterns can be from a past life, the patterns can be manifested. Uh, there was this client who had an anxiety pattern, and because of this anxiety kept coming back again and again in some form, and therefore the need to experience anxiety became the karmic learning or the karmic experience for this employee. And only that, and nothing to do with the boss or the subordinate, became the learning need for this employee's soul. So, there are different things. Then, of course, if we look at it differently, I mean, there can be a, let's say, or what we may call as a third eye chakra orientation, which means that either the boss has not been able to communicate the goals, the visions of the organization to the employee very clearly. So communication can be typically a throat chakra issue, a misaligned throat chakra of the boss. Or the employee has not been able to listen or understand or comprehend and make head or tail of the instructions very carefully about the boss. That would typically again become a either a throat chakra issue or a third eye chakra issue in terms of understanding the dreams, visions, goals. So in metaphysics, the reasons can be so varied and so new that it can actually unnerve the person initially. But as you go along these processes of healing yourself through therapy and other means, it is possible to establish beautiful connections, not just with the current relationship, but all future relationships. Now, let's look at it the reverse way around from a boss's perspective, so to say. Now, bosses are also human beings at the end of it, and they also could have communication issues, typically throat chakra issues. The boss has not been able to communicate the goals, the targets, the work expected, the throughput needed to the employee very well. So it could be typically an expression issue, communication issue, which would be a throat chakra issue. There could also be a possibility, and this is again a live case, wherein the boss himself was not very clear, but just because he was under pressure from his boss, he just communicated blindly the targets down the line. And so, on a physical plane, the evil carries down, but on a metaphysical plane, the boss himself was not very clear on the goals, the visions expected, and was not willing to get them to implementation and execution. So there can be so many reasons, even from a boss's perspective. Then, of course, there are emotional baggages, whether on the part of the employee or on the part of the boss. So there can be emotional baggage. I did mention anxiety from this live case a while back. Now, there can be patterns of low self confidence, low self esteem, and emotional blockages. There are patterns to complete some karmic learnings, as I mentioned in a different example just now. So, there are many, many reasons why, from a current life or from a past life, there is a need for such a relationship to get, disturbed. But what is important in metaphysics, and this is the fundamental tenet of metaphysics, is understand what are the learnings that I need to pick up from this experience, or should I say, mis-experience. Pick up the learnings, heal yourself out of that situation, make peace with the situation or with the person, and life can be pretty smooth. Now, the last part to your very interesting question: how do we do this? So basically, in metaphysics, of course, the modalities that we use are basically the principles of the subconscious mind. So just as we have the cognitive or the conscious mind, we have a subconscious mind. And various models tell us that the subconscious mind is hugely more powerful than the cognitive or conscious mind.
Okay.
So counseling works. Yes, it does. All these nice WhatsApp videos and the gyan that we pick up during our studies, during our lectures that we see on YouTube and the social media and the other workshop that we attend, do they work? Of course they work. But to imbibe it, to internalize it, and to change my very software of the way that my beliefs have been programmed, one needs to then delve into the subconscious mind. And when we do the therapy at the subconscious level, that is when the entire game opens up in a new dimension.
Okay. Sir, so for people who are unaware and who would not be very ready to go for a therapy as of now, how should they know that this is my learning, or this boss was my senapati last time? So how would a corporate
So
person know
my
that?
recommendation would be that if somebody is not able to comprehend the patterns of what is happening in my life, or I'm unable to resolve it to completion on my own. So one is to understand your own emotions or emotional residues. If you feel disturbed, angry, guilty, helpless, anxious, fearful, and so on.
These are so common.
So they are common. So if we are able to resolve it on our own with wisdom, with awareness, then it's great. It's wonderful to do just that because it's within our willpower. But then the willpower operates out of the conscious mind. And as I just mentioned, our own beliefs, our own conditioning has already formed the coded software in the subconscious mind. So we need to reprogram that software at the subconscious level, which is possible through therapeutic modes or similar such sciences, and that's where the involvement of metaphysics comes through.
Okay, sir. So it's very interesting angle. Friends, one thing to understand, neither is an employee wrong nor is a boss wrong. It is just the life, and as sir mentioned, maybe some past life. Of course, our learnings which we have to learn from each other, these may all come up. So it's just like, when you have major issues, you go to a doctor. If you don't have, you continue. But then you have to understand that these smaller issues can also become bigger. So in case you are facing, things which you are not able to handle on your own self, please take help. एक सर जो सिचुएशन आ रही है वो ये है कि most of the corporates are into a very competitive mode. So what they do, they place weekly targets, monthly targets, quarterly targets. In some of the industries, it's daily targets. तो अब से इतना पॉसिबल नहीं होता किसी के लिए अचीव करना. एंड आई एम नॉट सेइंग ओनली सेल्स, आई एम सेइंग एनीथिंग, प्रेजेंटेशंस, रिव्यूज, मीटिंग्स. तो क्या होता है कि एक पॉइंट आता है जहाँ पे an individual starts self-doubting. और ह्यूमिलिएशन तो ऑब्वियसली होती है, हर बार ही बोर्ड पे लग जाता है कि तुमने नहीं अचीव किया, एंड that starts affecting their personality, that also starts affecting their personal life in a very negative way. तो आपके पास you are like, you've done fantastic work in corporate sales, so I would like to understand a practical aspect to it and a metaphysical aspect to it.
So, as they say in metaphysics, the questions are within us and the answers are also within us. So, a question has the answers embedded within it, at least some of the answers, many of the answers. When he said, itna possible achieve karna nahi hai, that itself shows the belief system or a limiting belief system which any human being can encounter. It is not possible to achieve this. Now that itself becomes a limiting belief system, because sometimes sales people, or I mean, why sales, even beyond sales, we just tend to reject a target or an asking because it is a belief that if it has been imposed on us by the authority figure, so therefore it will be too much of a stretch to do it. So that itself becomes a limiting belief. First make it easy for me so that I flow through life easily. Then so that is embedded within it. Then the other part that you mentioned, which you've already answered within your question, is this perceived feeling of low self-esteem, of humiliation, of being made to feel very small. What happens if I don't achieve the targets? Self-doubt, as you very rightly said. So these are all emotions embedded within us, and these emotions are what form the patterns within us. Low self-esteem could be a pattern. Humiliation, or the need to experience humiliation, or the fear of experiencing humiliation. Now these are all emotional states, and metaphysics works very, very largely on emotional states and healing the troubling emotional states, what we sort of very loosely or generally called as negative emotions versus positive emotions. So there's nothing negative or nothing positive. Every emotion is a state which is okay, and it's okay to experience anger. It is okay to experience low self-esteem, but it is also important to be in high self-esteem. So sometimes these patterns affect us. I mentioned this case of this anxiety case, which had happened right from the womb. Now imagine if a salesperson were to be experiencing anxiety whenever he hears the targets, what would it do to the mental or emotional state of such a salesperson? Then, of course, there are money beliefs and money motivators for any of us, which can have a big determinant on how targets are to be achieved, whether I believe the targets can be achieved or not. To explain this, let's look at it from this point of view. If the beliefs of a person is that it is impossible to earn high money, and these kind of beliefs are very typical middle class beliefs, which can be ingrained into us right from childhood. When a child possibly does not even understand what money is about, what abundance is about, what earning money is about, but these beliefs get programmed. So it becomes like an operating system of the mind. So when some abnormally high, or what the person senses as abnormally high target setting or very ambitious target setting happens, now that money belief which the child, in the child form, the person has imbibed, it is difficult to earn high, or it is difficult to earn well. Now that comes into place when it comes to earning money for the company, for the organization. And therefore, the first reaction is it is impossible. So when the belief is it is impossible, do we really believe that the person will go all out and gun for those target achievement? Quite unlikely. Then, of course, there are issues of, there can be issues of, let's say, maybe the solar plexus chakra, as I may probably say, which is a control issue, for example. No, I would not like to be controlled by my organization, by my boss. Who's he to tell me? So just because there is a control issue, एक कश्मकश होती है, जद्दोजहद होती है कि either I am controlling or I am allowing myself to be controlled. Now these are very subtle game with the subconscious mind plays up with the emotions, and therefore sometimes we tend to reject those targets also, in that sense. Whether they are possible to achieve, impossible to achieve, difficult to achieve, but still achievable, that becomes a secondary thing. The need to reject authority and control and not be controlled it shall become the guiding factor, and the person doesn't know that he is succumbing to all of this. Then on the metaphysical plane, there can be issues of control, or the need to be controlled, or the refusal to get controlled. So especially when an employee typically feel that, look, I don't want to be controlled, and I'm not going to get controlled by whosoever tells me whatever to do. I refuse to do it. Then again, there could be possible issues of on the metaphysical plane, because these control issues is not just about one situation. It need not be about one situation, about one person, for example, that boss or that target in that moment. These could typically be patterns. So we have to, in metaphysics, we have to learn to recognize patterns or emotional states. And if either we find a repeating pattern, or we find an emotional state which is continuously disturbing us, that is typically when you explore the metaphysical realm and find out what could be possibly the reason, therefore how to get over it and how to heal it.
So, sir, here I would like to ask a question. So, people who are not able to get the targets as of now, what can be the issue? Like they are not able to achieve, or a boss who is experiencing a subordinate who is not able to achieve in both the cases. Can you give one example, with the metaphysical science?
So Bindu is like this. Who's troubled right now? Is it the boss who's feeling troubled because my employee or my team is not accepting the target, or is it the team member who's
not able to perform? Both the cases, sir.
So if it is the first case, then we first identify on a metaphysical plane, find out who's in pain. If supposing the boss is in pain, let's start from there. The boss is in pain, या मेरी team मेरे को नहीं मानती. And there was a real life case some time back when this person said, and the brief was funny, but I'll say it nevertheless. Sir, मेरी team में ना हमेशा ढक्कन ही मिलता है मेरे को.
Okay.
Funny as it sounds, hilarious as it sounds, that was exactly the presenting brief from this person who came in. And therefore, when we started exploring, we found out that this person was not willing to accept different personality types of team members.
Okay.
He wanted only like-minded people. So when you are seeking like-minded people, जो मेरी तरह सोचे, मेरी तरह देखे, मेरी तरह बोले, मेरी तरह समझे. So when we start finding too much of likeness in everybody, we try to emulate more and more of me around.
Okay.
So that leads to stifling of creativity, stifling of ideas in a team. So of course, it's easier said than done. But when the therapies happen in such a case, or when you get down to the emotional states and the pattern and the reasons why the conditioning started in the first place, that is then the metaphysical journey starts.
Okay.
So that is as far as the boss is concerned. Again, the boss could be himself holding insecurity because of his own job.
Correct.
And therefore he's passed down that insecurity down to the team. So if the boss is in trouble and the boss has come for help, then we need to identify what is it that is bothering him and what is that pattern. There can be, I remember a situation wherein this person was having a lot of issues on his personal life. So his relationships with his wife, with his children, and with other people in the family were not exactly very, very great. And that anger which was resulting, that hurt which was resulting, was affecting his own professional life as well. कि वहां भी मेरी नहीं सुनते और यहाँ भी मेरी नहीं सुनते, यहाँ तो सुनेंगे because at least I have control. So the reasons on a metaphysical plane can be so varied. It's similar if you look at from an employee's point of view, the situation could be exactly the reverse. So if I'm not enjoying life, if I'm not enjoying my relationships in my personal life or in my professional life, that itself, it may be nothing to do with targets, nothing to do with the corporate performance, nothing to do with the possibility whether it can be achieved or not. It is just a mixture and amalgam of so many conflicting thoughts, conflicting emotions, conflicting belief systems that can hamper what seems a very, very common and innocuous case of over ambitious targets having been given.
Sir, एक अगला सवाल ये है कि these days many people are there who are only working to pay bills. For whatever reasons, they are not liking their jobs. But then the EMIs, everything is so high that they work. But at the same time, they are at a juncture of their life where they feel that there should be purpose of life, and this is not what I was born for. So how do they align that? How do they know that this is not what they have to do? I will ask again the question of, bringing up the courage and all later on. But right now, my focus is on those people who are at that juncture where it's like, was I born to do this?
Sure, sure.
So, how do they align, sir?
So,
Metaphysics.
first of all, the question itself involves different facets of metaphysics. As far as such a typical person, and many of us face this situation from time to time, irrespective of the level at which we are. So, one is the very basic need for our roti, kapda, makan, or our survival needs. So, you need money. So, money, the fear of losing money or the fear of not attracting money itself becomes one of the very root fears, and there can be typically root chakra issues behind that as well, why such a situation were to happen. The other part of your question could be about enjoying life, as it were. I'm doing what I'm doing because I have to do it, I have to earn my money, but I am not enjoying what I'm doing, I'm not flowing with it.
Yes.
And I'm not hands on, I don't have a control on the situation. Now that can be a lot to do with enjoying the basic simple materialistic pleasures of life. Now the reasons can be many. The reasons could be misaligned work life balance, as we say. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and so on and so forth. That's one part. But then that also takes the fun out of our day-to-day experiences of whether at work, or even if I may say, even in the personal life, or vice versa. So both have a definitive impact on each other. Our relationships back in our personal life and our relationships in our professional life, our experiences, our beliefs in the personal life do have an impact. So that is one dimension of it. So just because we have to earn that money, so we are forcing ourselves to get into that. Having said that, when you speak of finding the purpose for which we were born for, now there are various modalities which are possible in metaphysics. For example, there are clients who are probably doing a corporate career in sales or in finance or whatever else they are doing, but they don't even know what they want to do, but they're not happy with it, and they said, I don't know, मुझे पता नहीं जी क्या करना, but ये मेरे को नहीं करना. I don't find enjoyment in that. So it is possible to take clients and make them see that happiest past life when they had a particular skill which gave them a very happy life. So the point is, who knows this?
Okay.
Now, the interesting part is our own subconscious mind knows the questions, and our own subconscious mind knows the answers also. So all the answers are within our own subconscious. We just have to go down to that chamber of our subconscious awareness and take the file out, and it is possible to see one of our past lives where we were the happiest living out a past life, and we had a certain skill. And there was a case long back wherein the person actually turned over from a corporate career to an artist, painter, and they did wonderfully well later on in life. We just integrated that past life skill, which was one of their happiest past lives, into the current life.
Okay.
The person was a good artist, but but had not done any art after school or college or something like that. But they just rose. They just rocketed to a
sir,
new dimension.
Just to
So,
interrupt you,
yes.
if at all a person is not able to take a therapy or something like that, is there a way that they can work on their own self also? If can they try?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, I mean, see, there are possibilities of just connecting. Of course, there are meditation techniques which can help you to connect with your own inner self. I'd say simply just learn to first spend time with yourself, within yourself. And rather than brood about what's going wrong, what's going right, try and adopt a solution oriented approach. Say, okay, if I'm at this stage, how do I make my life happier, more peaceful, more fulfilling, and what is it that I would love to do? So there are cases when an engineer, because it was ordained that he should become an engineer, the family had insisted, his educational qualification had mandated, and his own need to earn high money had mandated. He realizes that no, this is not what I want to do. I want to play rock.
And so when a person listens to such a thing, will it work for the person?
Now, it is possible that the person may have to sort of engage himself in those activities. And if he finds lightness, see, it's all about feeling lightness or heaviness.
Okay.
Do I feel light about going to work tomorrow? Yes, I feel light. Do I feel light going back home tonight? Yes, I do. Do I look forward to coming back to work? I feel light, yes.
Or choosing some other career.
As long as you feel light about anything. And now we'll get to your question. So if you feel light about pursuing a different life path, let's say in terms of a hobby or a passion or even a career, and we feel light about it, well, try and marry your rational part of you, the money earning part of you, the part which has a need to earn money, which has a need to or a rationale to, मेरे परिवार को भी उनका ध्यान रखना है, आगे की इन्वेस्टमेंट भी, आगे का पैसा बचाना है. Or otherwise, if you find that you are unable to find out the answer, then of course it's important to go to a specialist and find out the answers. Because as I said, the subconscious mind knows everything. Our subconscious mind is very, very powerful, and that's where the entire game of metaphysics sort of comes into play.
So friends, again, first look within and see if you're able to get answers. As sir is explaining, it's not a very difficult thing. Like if you feel easy about something, you can just make a note of it and work towards it. But just in case you still get stuck, seek a professional help. सर एक क्वेश्चन है, बहुत सारे यंगस्टर्स अभी उनके जॉब्स जा रहे हैं फॉर मल्टीपल रीजंस, आइदर दे आर बीइंग सैक्ड और दे आर लीविंग, व्हाटएवर. इट्स अ वेरी डिप्रेसिंग स्टेट टू बी इन बिकॉज दे डोंट नो एट दिस यंग एज व्हाट टू डू. इतना पैसा नहीं है कि कोई नया बिजनेस कर सके या कोई इतना एक्सपीरियंस भी नहीं है कि कुछ कर सके. तो जॉब्स मिलेंगी, ये सब एक बहुत अच्छी उम्मीद है, बट फॉर दोज पीपल हु आर स्टक इन दिस सिचुएशन, हु हैव लॉस्ट देयर जॉब्स and they don't have much to do, what is it, the metaphysical science, what does it say, क्यों ये situation में कोई आता है?
See, अगर प्योरली मेटा अगर हम वैसे फिजिकल रियलिटी कॉमन सेंस के हिसाब से देखें तो वी नो द रीजंस पॉसिबली क्या हो सकते हैं सो ऑन. बट सिंस दिस डिस्कशन एंड योर क्वेश्चन स्पेसिफिकली इज अबाउट metaphysics and application of metaphysics, so there is usually a reason to either pick up some learning. That's why we undergo the traumatic experience. तो जो भी हमारे लाइफ में ट्रॉमाज आते हैं, चाहे रिलेशनशिप के कारण, चाहे मनी के कारण, चाहे जॉब या करियर के कारण, और वट एवर एल्स, गॉड फॉरबिड कभी डिजीजेस इलनेसेस होते हैं उनके कारण.
That's my next question.
So ये सब जो होते हैं इनके पीछे 2 या 3 मेटाफिजिकल कारण हो सकते हैं. वन इज ऑफ कोर्स द नीड टू इम्बाइब सम कार्मिक लर्निंग, एंड अंटिल आई पिक अप दैट कार्मिक लर्निंग, some experience or the other will keep giving me that trauma or that jhatka until I pick up the learning, sail through it and internalize that learning, and then I'm sailing smoothly on that, breaking that pattern, breaking that troubling emotion, and so on.
So they should watch out for what they are feeling continuously for a long time.
That is basically being in awareness, being in mindfulness. So it is always good to be mindful about, be aware and acknowledge whatever are your feelings, your beliefs, your limiting emotions. हम लोग अक्सर क्या करते हैं, हम लोग we just shove the emotional baggage under the carpet.
Correct.
और हम इस लाइक सेइंग कि भाई बिंदु हमारे घर आ रही है, हमने कहा अरे बिंदु आ रही है, हमने फटाफट धूल अपनी झाड़ के कारपेट के नीचे कर दी, सारे गंदे कपड़े मैले कपड़े अलमारी में छुपा दिए, एंड बिंदु says wow what a wonderful house you have, and we start believing that fake is our reality, that we have a very pretty house. And as we develop this as a pattern, then what happens is कि हम उसको फिर नजरअंदाज करके फिर हम भूलने लगते हैं कि हमारे घर में तो बहुत अभी डस्ट है, बहुत मलबा पड़ा है, अभी तो जो साफ होना है, एंड वी स्टार्ट बिलीविंग दैट दिस reality is our true reality. So once we realize that yes, there is some problem, there is some emotional barrier, mind block that we are facing, there's a pattern, disturbing pattern in my life, or whatever else, then it becomes easier to go into the process of healing ourselves out of it further.
So sir, you suggest meditation is a good way to get into
Meditation is certainly one of the ways. Meditation helps you to be at calmness and peace with your universe, within yourself, It helps you to think better, focus better on your own vision about yourself, your own plans, your own goals, what you want to achieve, how you want to do that. Apart from meditation, I'd also say इमोशनल मैनेजमेंट. इमोशनल मैनेजमेंट होना बहुत ज़रूरी इसलिए क्योंकि हमारा अक्सर जो भी in the game of metaphysics, one of the biggest things is the emotion that it leaves us with. Whether it leaves us with fear, it leaves us with insecurity, with guilt, with anger, with helplessness, with anxiety, whatever it be. So once these emotions or emotional states are healed and we are into acceptance, unconditional love, happiness, joyfulness, peace, then the entire game plan changes.
Friends, very important point, that do not be in a state where it is constantly a low energy space, where you are not liking yourself, you are distressed, sad. No. If you're in that space, the solution will not come out. So you can choose your way, meditation, spirituality, talking out, whatever. But don't be in that constant state of negativity for long.
In fact, it's very interesting that you said that because there are typically क्या होता है अक्सर everybody goes into the why me syndrome. मेरे साथ ही क्यों ऐसा होना था? Why me? हाय मैंने ऐसा क्या करा? हाय मेरा. Or we go into the blaming syndrome. उसकी वजह से हुआ, उसकी वजह से हुआ, हालात की वजह से हुआ. So we are always angry with either ourselves. So we are angry with ourselves and we are full of guilt and shame and so on. Or we are angry with other people for having what we believe is they messed up my life. Or we are angry sometimes with the situation.
Correct.
Right? If so, it is possible to get over those emotions, heal our emotions related to some past experience which is already over. It's over and done and dusted with. We just need to pick up the learnings from that experience now. Very often we hold on to these emotions because we are not able to pick up the learnings and accept what has happened was because of whatever reason. The other part is fear of the future. जब जॉब जाता है तो हमारे को फियर इनसिक्योरिटी हो जाता है कि आगे क्या होगा. In terms of money, in terms of relationships, sometimes people are bothered कि मेरे relationships कैसे आगे बढ़ेंगे, मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है, मेरे पास जॉब नहीं है, how will I survive? So it is important to be grounded, to be in the here and now in the present, and therefore to work on taking empowering actions, making empowering choices, and taking very very empowering decisions in the here and now, which will help us to create a more empowered future. So we pick up the learning from the past, we plan for the future, but we take the action in the here and now. And that is, and वहीं पे अक्सर हम लोग freeze हो जाते हैं. हम लोग प्रेजेंट में जब मुसीबत आती है तो वी जस्ट फ्रीज. करेक्ट. वी आर नीदर एबल टू टेक अ स्टेप टू एज वी से द फाइट और फ्लाइट सिंड्रोम, वो हमारा कभी कभी एकदम ब्लॉक हो जाता है और वी टेक रॉन्ग स्टेप्स टुवर्ड दैट. Then of course it is also I would also say it is possible to do, as we pick up the learnings, it is possible to do and it is required to do self introspection and do self work. On a physical plane we pick up new skills, as they say, pick up new skills. Correct. I'd say on a metaphysical plane pick up new soft skills. Okay. Of how to manage relationships, whether in our personal life or in our professional life. How do we manage how do we recognize our limiting beliefs, overcome those limiting beliefs. Once we do that and we build upon our relationships, we heal our patterns with positivity, I think that's when the game plan changes. We're able to overcome our traumatic period with ease and flexibility and happily.
तो सर एक और चीज का अगर आप मेटाफिजिकल रीजन बता सकें, बिकॉज दैट्स वन एरिया वेयर लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर गेटिंग स्टक. इट इज दैट बिकॉज ऑफ द लॉन्ग एंड hard working hours, I'll say, beyond a point, many of the people, especially males, say they may get BP, sugar, thyroid, and women, they experience fibroids, uterus removal. So this is very common. So is it that there is a metaphysical science to these diseases as well?
Yeah, this is this is very very interesting because as they say, about 90% of our diseases and illnesses, are a result of some unresolved or unhealed or unaddressed thought emotion pattern. Not only that, but these are called psychosomatic diseases. Psycho, there's a disturbing thought emotion pattern behind it. Somatic, it comes into the body.
Oh.
So some disturbed, unhealed, or unresolved thought emotion pattern eventually comes into the grossest form at which we vibrate, which is the physical body.
Okay.
This is the, as they say in our Indian term, in our this thing, the Karan Sharir. So it falls into this. It disturbs our state of ease. So, disturbed ease. Disturbed ease is dis-ease or disease. So, diseases and illnesses are of outcome, is the final outcome when the body takes it upon itself and goes into some kind of trauma or some kind of pain. So, added to this is also the fact that when since we are applying metaphysics, we have electromagnetic energetic concentration points in our in terms they are called the chakras. I'm sure many of our viewers are familiar with the word chakras. So chakras are basically concentration points of electromagnetic energy in our in our energy body or our auric space. So we have 7 major chakras, and then there are minor chakras, and there are micro chakras, and so on. So these chakras are linked to one or more glands. Each of these chakras are linked to one or more glands, and as we know, glands are linked to hormones. In terms, hormones, they release or they withhold release of the optimal amount of chemicals into the body. Once the chemical balance, or as one of the movies very famously said, chemical locha jab ho jata hai, now that causes one or more parts of the body to go into dis-ease or disease. So yes, if we have unresolved thoughts, unresolved emotions, it can lead to diseases and illnesses of many kinds. So cervical, what we know as heart attack, arthritis, and so on and so forth, they are all psychosomatic diseases. Not only that, but for example, type 1 diabetes has a different thought emotion pattern than type 2 diabetes. Stones in the gallbladder has a different thought emotion pattern than stones in the kidney. Breast cancer has a different thought emotion pattern than, let's say, maybe pancreatic cancer or blood cancer. Left breast cancer and right breast cancer have a different thought emotion pattern, which may be unhealed or unresolved, and so on. So, as they say, the body talks. Our body is we all know, it is the biggest and the best and the most powerful supercomputer that has ever been built. So, like a supercomputer, we work on certain programs. We have an operating system, we have a disk, we have a RAM, we have a ROM, and so on. The mind exactly works like this. So, when there are unhealed patterns, then every part of the human body is designed for a purpose. And that part or that function or that organ goes into a state of disturbed ease or disease, as we know.
Oh, okay. So, sir, are you saying that our bodies also talk to us and we don't listen to it, or we don't know how to listen to it?
Both, actually, yes, you are absolutely right. See, as I say, there can be 3 reasons. One is we refuse to listen to the body. As you rightly said, we refuse to listen to the body. B, we are unable to listen to the body. And C is we don't refuse, we listen, but we ignore the signals. And very often that we find, we refuse to listen or but we ignore the signals. The body actually is the last form of manifestation of a pain.
Okay.
Because the body is the grossest, the lowest frequency at which we vibrate. अगर body ने दे दिया. Now, having said that, as the saying goes, I think I did mention this a while back also, that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So why do we need to suffer? If the pain is to happen, there must be a root cause for that pain. But when we have connected ourselves, aligned ourselves to the root cause of the pain, then we can heal ourselves out of the suffering that we have to encounter thereafter. And that is where the game of metaphysics comes in, and it's possible to not buckle under a body condition, but to take care of it. And this I'm saying, in addition to whatever medical advice or medical route we may be sort of, undertaking anyway. So the good part is that it is possible to heal these unresolved thought emotion patterns. It is possible to heal these. Now, interestingly, since this discussions are all about metaphysics, now there can be many other causes also. Now, one of the causes could be that there could be a past life pattern to a cause. So there was this person whose diabetes actually originated from a past life.
Okay.
Okay, some burn mark or some shooting pain somewhere in the back when it was traced back emanated from a past life, holdover baggage,
Okay.
which was causing this pain now in the here and now in this life. Well, there are metaphysical reasons which, to a very rational sounding perspective, may seem very strange and bizarre, but these are also realities. They have been experienced in cases also. There can be cases of maybe a curse from a past life. There can be a curse from this life. There can be oaths, vows. There are so many things in which the body takes that pain on itself. So the game of metaphysics goes much, much deeper than the very obvious physical, as we say in medical terms, the pain. But it is important, as you very rightly said, to recognize the pain, trace back the root of that pain, and get out of that. Suffering is a choice.
So, friends, you will know whenever it is triggering something, you will know from where it is coming. Any hurt, please try and address it in your own ways. And yes, of course, you have 100 helps around. If you're not able to sort it out on your own, seek help. Sir, एक क्वेश्चन और है. Because of many diseases, productivity of an employee goes down. Any individual goes down. But जो major cases अभी देखने में आ रहे हैं वो है depression. So there are professionals who are going through this state of depression. So is there a metaphysical science for this also?
Yeah, it's interesting, and what you said is very true. Depression has become such a common word. Stress, depression. Yeah, so to understand the metaphysics of depression, see, let's understand where the basic survival instinct comes from, which is the genesis of the entire Darwinian process of evolution. So there is a fight flight syndrome which we are all inborn with. So either we learn to face a situation, confront it, as they say, fight it, or we learn to move away, step back from that situation. And neither is bad. Neither fight nor flight. It's just a way of survival, and that is how we are all programmed. All beings, all living beings on earth are programmed to either fight or flight in a situation. Now, let's move to a story which I had read in my junior classes in our Hindi class. कि एक वो लड़का था, वो भालू उसके पीछे आ रहा था. भालू जब उसके पीछे आ गया, लड़का को लगा कि अब तो मैं नहीं बच पाऊंगा, तो वहीं पे जमीन पे लेट गया. उसने सांस अंदर रोका, भालू आया, उसको सूंघ कर चला गया. नाउ व्हाई डिड आई कोट दैट स्टोरी? बिकॉज when the fight syndrome or the flight syndrome both go into we refuse to trigger our fight or flight syndrome, then what is the natural survival instinct? The natural survival instinct is to just hold your breath and play dead, which is exactly what this boy did. Now, playing dead in metaphysical terms is the equivalent of what we call as depression.
Okay.
When we choose not to be in a fight syndrome nor in a flight syndrome but play dead. Now, it can be argued कि play dead से वो तो भालू से बच गया, अच्छा जिंदा तो रहा. तो डिप्रेशन में वो what is the similarity? Now, depression is also a way that the mind tunes itself to survival. It says, भाई डिप्रेशन में बैठे हैं लेकिन सर्वाइव तो कर रहे हैं. Now, why the negativity? Because एक तरह से उस जिंदा लाश की तरह इंसान हो जाता है. ना फाइट सिंड्रोम एक्टिव है, ना फ्लाइट सिंड्रोम एक्टिव है, प्ले डेड सिंड्रोम एक्टिव है, which is depression. Survival is happening. The person is living to breathe the next breath.
Correct.
But the downside is सारी इंद्रियां ब्लॉक हो जाती हैं.
Such two simple tools to come out of it. I mean, of course, it's a journey, but still, with your experience, दो चीजें ऐसा क्या करें जिससे वो थोड़ा सा उठ जाए?
Well, actually speaking, there are two ways. If a person could come out of that depressionary state on one's own, that would be the best thing. How wonderful it would be if we could learn to manage our depression. And like I said a while back, an awareness of emotional management. A. B. An awareness to accept responsibility that whatever is happening is my creation, and I just need to move out of that and step out of that space and create a new reality for myself. So once we are neither willing to create a new reality for ourselves, take any action and so on, then what happens? So basically, we just always need to be in a constant state of emotional management. Managing our emotion better. अगर प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं रहेगी, प्रॉब्लम की जड़ नहीं रहेगी, तो ऐसी सिचुएशन आएगी क्यों डिप्रेशन वाली. अगर हम जानते हैं अपने इमोशंस को मैनेज करना, अपने ट्रबलिंग पैटर्न्स को ओवरकम करना, उनसे अपने आप को हील करना, दैट सिचुएशन विल नॉट अराइज. Otherwise, like I said, if you cannot do it on your own, then seek help. Now, having said that, what is important to understand is कि हम लोग रोज में आम भाषा में इतनी आसानी से बोलते थे, यार मेरे को डिप्रेशन हो गया, यार बॉस ने इतना काम दिया वीकेंड के लिए, मेरे को तो डिप्रेशन हुए जा रहा है. Now, in the context of this discussion, we are talking of clinical depression in metaphysical terms. It is not to be confused. हम रोज में जो आम जो स्ट्रेस होता है, वर्क स्ट्रेस को हम डिप्रेशन डिप्रेशन बोल देते हैं. So, I'd like everybody to be, who's watching this or listening to this, to be very clear that depression in this sense is very different from how we normally use it in common parlance.
Okay. So, professionals, corporates, otherwise लोग बहुत कर्मठ होते हैं. वो काम करते चले जाते हैं. वो ना बॉडी की सुनते हैं ना किसी की सुनते हैं. वो पिल्स खाते हैं, वो काम करते चले जाते हैं. कुछ चैलेंजेस होते हैं तो वो भी वो हैंडल करते चले जाते हैं. So, is there a point which is like an alarming sign, or which gives you signs because they won't believe in past life, going for a therapy, or looking at any alternate thing? They would like to look at it practically. So is there a time where a person should say कि नहीं अब मुझे कुछ और भी करना चाहिए?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. See, if we are, for those who are very rational and intellectual and very logical about the choices available with them, and there is no talk of metaphysics, there is just pure physical reality around us. So then my only submission to people is, do something about it. Get over it. You change your diet, you change your lifestyle, you change your beliefs, you change your reality, you work upon doing something, but take some action and get it over and done with. However, as we have been recognizing all through this discussion, the roots of a possible issue can go very, very deep and into areas which we could never have imagined most of the time. For those who are not familiar with these sciences or who have not done any kind of reading and so on. So how should one recognize this?
Yeah.
Well, one way is, I am experiencing this and I am unable to get through it.
Correct.
And this happens, this is very, very common. कि जी मैं तो बहुत कुछ कोशिश कर ली, मैंने ये भी कर लिया, वो भी कर लिया, मैंने ऐसा भी अपना भी लाइफस्टाइल बदल दिया, मैंने अपनी आदतें बदल दी, मैंने अपने but they are unable to break through. Now that is a sign that things are not exactly consciously in their willpower to change it. And if it is not consciously in their willpower, then it means that there could be possibilities which one should try and recognize ASAP, that there could be something more deeper in my own beliefs, in my own programming, in my own coding, which is basically a connection with the subconscious mind, and therefore the application of metaphysics. So that's one part. The second part is, sometimes when people come with physical or body diseases or illnesses, and I've had a number of these cases. Now, what happens? The doctors say कि जो हमने दवाई देनी थी, जो स्कैन्स करने थे, जो टेस्ट करने थे, वो कर लिए. जो हमको ठीक नहीं लगा वो हमने कर लिया. but now you are okay. But the person says, for example, there was a client who was working with a very large multinational recruiting firm, headhunting firm, and the person had come up with some gastrointestinal issues. Now it required him to discover for himself the the deep-seated relationship issues which he was facing ever since his childhood. So that released a part of of his emotional baggage. It also needed us to have him use the power of his subconscious mind to heal your body. Yes, it is possible to heal the body. It is possible to heal the physical body using modalities of subconscious healing. It does not disturb anything which the medical science is doing, whether by way of invasive surgery, by way of medications, and so on. But it only multiplies when you heal your thought emotion pattern, which is causing the body diseases. And you can actually multiply the effect of healing by actually physically working with the power of your subconscious mind on your body or affected body organs. So it is possible to do all of that. Now, what is important is to recognize that there is some issue which I am unable to get through. The doctors are saying that it is okay, itni problem nahi hai, and yet I feel pained by it. So now we know that there is time for me to seek help in the metaphysical realm.
तो सर यहाँ पर एक क्वेश्चन ये है कि जो काफ़ी करेजियस लोग होते हैं वो कहते हैं तो लाइफ के डे टू डे इश्यूज हैं, इसमें क्या है, इसमें इतना पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं, यही लाइफ नहीं संभल रही, तुम पास्ट लाइफ और देखना चाहते हो, तो ये भी एक एंगल है सर.
True. My only answer is to such people is it's okay. See, it's okay to be in any situation, in any state of body, any state of mind, any state of emotion. If you are not troubled by it, and if you are chilled about it, relax. Don't bother. But if you believe that it is troubling you, or if you believe that there is something which you are not able to pinpoint, but you would like to get over it, then explore yourself deeper into your own inner awareness. It's not just a question of this life or past life. दिक्कत यह है कि my next question would be, अगर आप खुद कर सकते होते तो अभी तक कर चुके होते. If you could have done it on your own, you would have done it by now. But the very fact that you have not been able to do it and you're still in pain and you still don't know. Now, sometimes it is good to just surrender, and I use the word surrender in a very holistic way. Sometimes it is good to just let go of the situation and say, okay, I have an issue. I don't know where it resolves or where the root cause is, but I'm willing to work on it, and I want to work on it, and I believe I have the power of my subconscious mind to overcome that issue.
Beautiful.
And if I have the power, it is in my power to make a choice. I want to heal or I don't want to heal. If you want to heal, do something about it, either on your own or seek external help. And if you don't want to heal about it, then relax. As long as you're happy, joyful, at peace with your state of mind, then it is absolutely fine. Just be there in
So
that
here
state.
I would like to ask, if at all a person wants to work on their own self without going to anyone, if, because of any inhibition, what are a couple of tools which you can suggest?
Yeah, then of course, since we understand that much of these blockages that we have are related to emotions, unresolved or unhealed emotions, or some kind of disturbing patterns. So, a basic understanding of emotional management models is a must. And these days, anyway, everybody talks about emotional management, emotional intelligence, and so on. So one must learn to uh, pick up learnings, pick up wisdom about what is this emotion game all about, emotional management game all about. One is, as we said, release the anger or the hurt feeling of the past. Find your way to overcome your fears, your insecurities, your anxieties about the future. Be present in the here and now, because this is the only reality that exists where you can make a choice, where you can make a decision, where you can take a concrete, decisive action. Related to this, emotional management is also to develop compassion and empathy, not only towards yourself, because unconditional love starts with my loving myself just the way I am. Does it mean that I stay the same way because I chose to unconditionally love myself the way I am? No. All it means is that I choose to become a better version in each and every moment of my existence. But in each moment, I accept the way I am, subject to the fact that I know I can change, and I'm continuing to make that change through action which I'm taking in the now. So once that compassion and empathy come towards myself, we therefore build compassion and empathy towards others around us, whether in our work life or in our personal life, in our all our relationships, in terms of interpersonal dynamics. Then, of course, there are techniques related to emotional management, which can, there are emotional management techniques, EMT, EET, EFT, tapping techniques, as they say, which we can use for simple day-to-day kind of first aid, working on our emotional management. And it is possible to learn these techniques from the net if you can, and if you can imbibe it. Otherwise, from any learned practitioner who can teach you and tell you the many variants. What is also important as a tool is to understand that if I am the creator of the choices which I made and therefore the result which I'm facing, I am the creator and I am the creation. So if I am Brahma both ways, if it is a case of Aham Brahmasmi, then if I am the creator and I am the creation, तो मेरे को ही अपना वो करना है, nobody else is responsible. So forgiveness and forgiveness affirmations. No, it's very difficult to digest that somebody who has been the cause of my trouble in the past, I should be able to forgive them. Now that therefore comes with a lot of emotional management and emotionally intelligence tools and technique that we can imbibe. But forgiveness affirmations work a long way in understanding and getting us to build that compassion and empathy and to accept the responsibility of our own actions, to understand that I am responsible for where I am, nobody else is responsible, and therefore I only have to make a choice, to get myself out of this situation. Of course, those who are, who would want to do though, there are techniques even in self-hypnosis. Since you mentioned tool that we could do on our own, it is possible to learn from a trained practitioner the art of self-hypnosis. Put yourself into a relaxing state using certain basic tools, and you can do simple affirmation and self-healing work in that. It works very beautifully and very, very deeply. Then, of course, there are many other ways in terms of developing our own visions, of our own goals, of our own dreams about ourselves. There are exercises for strengthening the third eye chakra, and it is possible to do that, to not only frame your own new vision, new goals, new dreams, but also to be able to implement and execute those visions and dreams successfully, which gives me happiness, which gives me abundance. So there are many, many tools. I'm just covering some of the metaphysical tools, and that too is only some part of it, but there are so many tools one can imbibe.
So friends who have this thing that they don't want to seek help outside as of now, you can just Google all what Sir said, learn it on your own and work on your own. The point is, take responsibility for your life. The answer is not outside. We cannot blame anyone for our goodness or for our miseries for that matter. So please work on that. And just in case you get stuck, talk it out, sort it out. सो सर डिटेल कॉन्वर्जेशन तो हम ज़रूर बाकी चीज़ों पे करेंगे, लेकिन दो डिजीज़ेस पे अगर आप बता सकें जिस पे हो जाते हैं क्वेश्चंस, सर्वाइकल, जॉइंट पेन.
तो मेटाफिजिकल टर्म्स में, which is very distinct from the medical terminology as we normally sort of would say that. जॉइंट पेन क्या होता है? हमारे जॉइंट जो है, हमारे जोड़े जो हैं, वो क्या करते हैं? वो हमारे को मूवमेंट करवाते हैं, हमारे लिम्स की मूवमेंट करवाते हैं. हाथों में जॉइंट्स हैं, पाँव में जॉइंट्स हैं, हिप जॉइंट एंड सो ऑन. तो मूवमेंट से क्या होता है हमारे को? सो एवरी बॉडी पार्ट, लाइक आई सेड, द बॉडी टॉक्स. हर बॉडी पार्ट को डिजाइन किया गया है किसी पर्पस के लिए. तो जोड़े हमको या जॉइंट्स हमारे को क्या करते हैं? हमारे को मूवमेंट करवाते हैं ताकि हम अपना काम जो उस लिम्ब का है कर सकें. अब अगर ये नहीं होगा तो हम कैसे चलेंगे? ऐसे 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 चलेंगे पाँव से.
हाँ जी.
और जॉइंट्स होने से क्या होता है? वी मूव विद फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, लचीलापन आता है बॉडी में, ईज आता है, हम आसानी से चल सकते हैं विद लेस स्ट्रेस ऑन द बॉडी. So the joints in metaphysical terms usually represent flexibility and ease. तो जब हम जिंदगी के किसी दायरे में कभी stubborn हो जाते हैं, अड़ियल हो जाते हैं, और we refuse to be flexible, or we are unable to show flexibility or ease in some dimension of life, so that create the signal through the body in the form of maybe a pain in the joints. अगर राइट साइड में अगर पेन हो रहा है, सपोजिंग राइट साइड नी जॉइंट में पेन हो रहा है, एंकल जॉइंट में पेन हो रहा है, तो राइट साइड से हम पहला कदम किसी चीज की ओर रखते हैं. अगर अगर राइट साइड में किसी के जॉइंट में पेन है, तो व्हाट वुड वन से कि विच पार्ट ऑफ योर लाइफ आर यू रिफ्यूजिंग टू मूव विद फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एंड ईज इन मेकिंग द फर्स्ट स्टेप फॉरवर्ड. एंड इनवेरिएबली द सबकॉन्शियस विल थ्रो अप एन आंसर, हाँ जी मेरा जिंदगी में ऐसी चीज मेरे को करना है, ये एक्शन करना है, या ये मेरे को तजुर्बा लेना है जहां से मेरा फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी और ईज नहीं आ पा रहा. समटाइम्स वी गेट पेन्स इन द हैंड. सो व्हाट डू वी डू विद द हैंड्स इन द बेसिक सर्वाइवल मोड? We fight with our hand, we use it to pick up objects and so on. So when we are refusing to fight and we are stubborn and so on, so these are all joint pains are typically representative of inability or refusal to move with flexibility and ease. Now let's look at it differently. By the way, pain is pain means PAIN, pay attention in now. PAIN. तो बॉडी सिग्नल देती है, हेलो मेरे को यहां पर प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, गिव अटेंशन टू मी. और जब हम अटेंशन नहीं देते, द बॉडी मैनिफेस्ट्स अ बिगर पेन. सो दैट इज वन पेन इन द जॉइंट्स. Now, when it is cervical, metaphysical terms again, not to be confused with medical terms. So, what is cervical? Cervical is जब हमारी गर्दन अकड़ जाती है. गर्दन का काम क्या है? गर्दन का काम है इधर मुड़ना, उधर मुड़ना, ऐसे मुड़ना, ऐसे मुड़ना, and so on. Why do we need to move our neck joint? We need to move our neck joint so that we can see around with flexibility. तो अगर सर्वाइकल का मतलब क्या हुआ? आई रिफ्यूज टू लुक एट ऑल पर्सपेक्टिव्स ऑफ लाइफ विद फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एंड ईज. नहीं मेरी ही बात चलेगी, दिस इज द वे इट इज, एंड आई चूज टू ओनली बी दिस वे. आई डोंट केयर अबाउट अदर पर्सपेक्टिव, व्हाट यू होल्ड एंड व्हाट यू होल्ड. नाउ it is not necessary that all pains are manifested from the patterns of this life or by the disturbing thought emotion pattern of this life. Like I said, they may have a past life connection, they may have many other belief system behind it, so that's a different topic. But cervical typically could mean not being able to, refusing to see all perspectives of life with flexibility and ease. And therefore everything has a kidney in metaphysical terms could mean, apart from any other thing, parental guilt. Cancer could mean huge amounts of unstored anger, and so on. So this is how the body talks basically.
Sir, thank you so much for such a delightful talk.
Thank you very much for having me in here and allowing me to share my thoughts and to learn so much from all the experiences. Because as they say, the guru is within me, the guru is with others who come in my universe.
Wow.
So we learn from ourselves, we learn from each other.
So friends, we are learning so many interesting ways to handle life in a much better way. You have got 100 options. You can look at it practically, you can look at it metaphysically, choose any way. But the point is, please do not be stuck in any area of your life, be it health, relationship, career, for long. Because then neither are you able to come out of it, nor someone is able to bring you out of it. That cannot be a good situation in life. Take responsibility, no blame game. Just work on yourself the way you feel the best. We will meet again. Till then, talk it out, sort it out.